Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I have an epic rant for you. I have just finished the Grisaia series of visual novels, and let me tell you, this has simultaneously been one of the best and worst literary experiences of my life. What do I mean by that? Well, the rabbit hole goes deep, so let's get into it. First, I will start with going over each novel in turn, while highlighting some plot points that will become important toward the end of the video. It goes without saying that there will be spoilers, so if that's something you're concerned about, you should leave now. In the first novel, the setting is a small school called Mihama Academy. This school only has 5 female students, but they're all special in their own way. They are there because, for one reason or another, they do not function well in normal society. Sort of a gilded cage. One day, the first male student arrives. His name is Yuji. At first, we don't know much about him, but throughout the novel, little bits and pieces of his past are dropped. Slowly, we get the idea that he has a lot of trauma in his past, and that now he works for some shady organization doing dangerous work in a part-time capacity. In exchange for remaining on standby for when they need him, he is allowed to attend a school to try and have something like the normal life that he was never able to experience growing up. The first novel never really fully explains his past, but in my opinion, that is just fine because his past is not strictly necessary to enjoy what is there. After a lengthy common route, the game begins to give you choices in sequence to enter the character-specific routes. Each girl has her own route, which functions as a complete story and serves as one possible ending for the novel. I do need to mention Amane's story in particular. Amane was involved in a bus accident years back with a group of students. Among these students was Yuji's sister, Kazuki. Kazuki took a liking to Amane and made her her survival partner. Ultimately, the group descended into madness and resorted to cannibalism to survive. At that point, Kazuki and Amane made a run for it. Kazuki stayed behind as bait for the others who were in pursuit so that Amane could get away. Amane is able to find help, and workers arrive at the scene of the accident. At that point, Kazuki is barely alive. She is taken in and deemed a suitable candidate for a top-secret project, and she is integrated into a brand new computer system as its living core. The name of the system is Thanatos. Now it's time to move on to the second visual novel. As I mentioned, the first novel does not really fully explain Yuji's past. The writers clearly saw this as untapped potential for a sequel. In the second novel, there are 5 after-stories, 5 continuations of the character-specific routes which began in the first one. Then there is the main route. In the main route, Yuji leaves the school after having spent an indeterminate amount of time there to go and deliver a summary of his past in preparation for a promotion at his job. At no point in this route is it ever implied that Yuji has chosen a particular girl. I do need to mention one more thing, though, regarding Amane. In Amane's after story in the second visual novel, Yumiko, one of the other students, walks in on her and Yuji having sex in the bath. Yumiko angrily tells them not to use the dorm as their sexual playground before leaving in a huff. So far, so good. The main story makes no mention of romance, and there are 5 after-stories to continue the individual routes and develop those character relationships even further. Well, on the way back to the school, Yuji is brought in for a job. His objective is to kill a terrorist. What they did not tell him is that his target is the same terrorist that subjected him to so much trauma in his childhood when he brainwashed him into being a killing machine. Due to sheer shock, he is not able to pull the trigger, and he is taken into custody. Since part of the reason the terrorist had returned was to retrieve Yuji, they wanted him to first try to take him out, and if that proved impossible, they would hold him as a bargaining chip. So now things are getting exciting, and we come to the third novel. Early on in the third novel, Yumiko references the scene in Amane's after story where she walked in on her and Yuji in the bath. So in the main route, there was definitely a time that Amane and Yuji were regularly having sex. A little bit later, Amane mentions during a monologue that she is considering marrying Yuji. So it seems to be something they have talked about. Since the school is due to be shut down due to a lack of funding, Yumiko, who comes from a wealthy family, buys a houseboat to serve as the little group's base of operations. They begin desperately trying to figure out how they can rescue their beloved Yuji. Remember Thanatos? At this point, Kazuki, Yuji's sister, makes contact. She has fully regained her memories, and since she is now the living core of the Thanatos system, she leverages the formidable resources at her disposal to assist the girls in forming and carrying out an audacious rescue plan. Later on, Kazuki is rescued from her life as the Thanatos core, and she and Amane have a conversation wherein Kazuki is telling Amane that if she wants to be Yuji's girlfriend, she needs to accept everything about him, even his faults. My point here is that Amane, by any objective measure, is the best choice for Yuji. Amane and Yuji have a shared connection in Kazuki, his sister. They were already having sex by the third visual novel, and Amane was talking of marriage, and Kazuki was even discussing with Amane her relationship with Yuji. But then they had to go and fuck everything up. Through a series of improbable and convenient circumstances, they acquire their own submarine, because apparently when you are the living core of a hyper-advanced computer system, you just have that much power. It just so happens that Yuji's old master, who he trained with in the past, bought an island, and then when she died, the ownership of the island fell to him. Pretty convenient that they're revealing this just now, I would say. Kazuki, as Thanatos, arranged things to where a new Mihama Academy could be established on this tropical island paradise, and they all lived happily ever after as one giant harem. Cool, right? Actually, no. Fucking hell. No, 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 no. For fuck's sake, I almost had my perfect ending, and then they had to go and screw everything up. After the main route ends, the after story is unlocked. Basically, in the after story, Yuji is depicted as this supremely indecisive piece of trash. He's having sex with all of the girls, and he can't bring himself to make a choice because he doesn't want to disappoint all of them, nor does he want to choose one and break the hearts of the other four. So he does nothing, even knowing that things cannot continue the way they are. Eventually, one of them gets pregnant, and then he reveals that he was basically waiting for random chance to make the choice for him. He was going to commit to whichever girl had his baby first. Of course, this didn't sit well with the others, so they all agreed to share him. The other four were willing to have his babies as well, rather than give him up. I said just a little while ago that I almost had my perfect ending. In the second and third visual novels, anything that you accessed outside of the main story was not canon. Since the after story is unlocked only after you complete the main route, I was perfectly happy to consider it as just a non-canon extra for those people who wanted the harem ending. A bit of fan service, if you will. At the very end of the main story, a character named Makina is teasing Yumiko about how she used to keep Yuji at arm's length, but now she lets him get real close and even lets him inside of her sometimes. Now, due to the earlier information regarding Amane, one might say that she was being set up all along as the main girl, and maybe he just happened to have a few encounters here and there with Yumiko and the others. But his main girl and ultimate choice was always going to be Amane. I suppose that if we stick to the idea that all bonus content is non-canon, we can fill in the blanks ourselves and let our imaginations write our preferred ending for us. That would have been easy if it hadn't been established in the main route that he had been banging both Yumiko and Amane, and possibly the others as well. Additionally, the bonus after story is so plainly intended to be a continuation of events after they arrive at the island that it's nearly impossible to keep up these mental gymnastics. This harem ending, where he is too cowardly and indecisive to pick a girl, is kind of heartbreaking for me. I know that all of these characters are works of fiction, but when the quality of fiction is really high, you can feel a real connection to it. Each individual story in the first novel was so beautifully well done. The characters were amazing, the writing was absolutely superb, and in each case, he was loyal to his chosen girl and didn't sleep with anyone else. Each story was a thing of beauty. So for the actual canon ending to be him becoming this womanizing jerk who can't keep his dick in his pants and choose a girl is absolutely infuriating. It would have been far, far preferable for him to make the difficult choice to pick one girl to the exclusion of the others. That, or just remain friends with all of them. I will always love this series. You could strip out all of the sexual content, and you would still have a top-notch tale that stands tall on the quality of its writing alone. I will never forget these characters and their stories, nor will I ever forget that the writers chose one of the lamest and worst endings possible. And that is why the Grisaia series is a beautiful disappointment. Thanks for watching, everyone. That's everything.